verses 11 through 17. Luke chapter 7, verses 11 through 17. I want to talk this morning about when Jesus canceled the funeral. When Jesus canceled a funeral. Yeah, don't get the shovel too quick. Because just when you think it's over and the clock has run out, God will just be getting started. Give you a new beginning. When Jesus cancels a funeral. Luke chapter 7, verses 11 through 17. If you have it, say, I got it. All right, I'm reading from the English Standard Version this morning, and it reads, soon afterward. By the way, soon afterward connects this story with what we preached last week with the centurion. For the Bible readers, soon afterward, after what? After he healed the centurion's servant. Soon afterward, he went to a town called Nain, a nobody place, a nowhere place. And his disciples and a great crowd went with him. As he drew near to the gate of the town, behold, a man who had died was being carried out. The only son, everybody say only son, of his mother, and she was a widow. Everybody say widow. And a considerable crowd from the town was with her. Notice the pronouns. I'm doing it on purpose because I'm coming to it. With her. Y'all see that? Verse 13. And when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her and said to her, do not weep. I'm not just doing it for effect. I want you to, we're going to come back to that. Right. Then he came up and touched the bier. And the bearers stood still. And he said, young man, I say to you, arise. And the dead man sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him to his mother. Fear seized them all, and they glorified God, saying, a great prophet has arisen among us, and God has visited his people. And this report about him spread through the whole of Judea and all the surrounding country. When Jesus canceled the funeral. When Jesus canceled the funeral. What I want to say this morning is that based on this text, Jesus teaches us about how to trust him. And this is the way we need to trust him. We can trust him. We can trust in a God who works in time. We can trust in a God who works over time. And we can trust in a God who works ahead of time. Can I say that one more time and go on and say what I got to say? I said this text, when Jesus lifts this man up, raises him from the dead, stops the funeral, the takeaway is not from now on, every time you have a funeral or somebody dies in your family, expect Jesus to raise them up before y'all go to the burial ground. That ain't the point, that ain't the takeaway of the story. That ain't how he lead you to faith. He's leading you to this event to let you know, give you a sign of his great power and what you can trust him for. It teaches you that you have a God who works in time. He synchronizes events. You have a God who works over time. After the clock has run out and you said it's over, he just got started. Oh, Jesus. And you have a God who works ahead of time. The text said a prophet has arisen. Are y'all halfway interested in it? I couldn't wait to get to y'all this morning. Y'all halfway interested in this text? Well, let's see what we got. What we got here, verses 11 through 13. We have a God, we trust a God who works in time. I want you to notice the woman comes from a place called Nain. There was a boy who has died, and notice that he is identified not in terms of who he is, in terms of his name. We'll get not his age. We'll get any of that. We just get he's a young man. And most of his identity is tied, listen to this, to his mother. It's the mother's son. All right, so he's identified in light of his mother. Now that's crucial when I say her. The emphasis is not so much on, as you'll see with Jesus, the boy who died, as much as the mother who is left to grieve. Do you hear what I said? So this is going to let us into something about Jesus and his compassion, because compassion and the crises are going to collide. The woman's crisis and Jesus is going to collide. Now you have a woman from Nain. She's from a place called nowhere. Nobody knows it, and she's lost everything that she has. In this text, notice that she is a widow who has lost her only son. I'll say that 2 more times. She is a widow who has lost her only son. I will say it 1 more time just to let you know that we need to stop there and put the little brakes on when we say that she is a widow who has lost her only son. Please understand that a widow today and a widow then are very different. In a place like the United States, a woman and women's rights and all that we have for women, a woman, you ain't got to even get married to a man. You ain't got to be connected to no man. You can pretty much make it without any man in your life, you know. Even if your daddy wasn't there, you never get married, you get divorced, whatever. You pretty much can go to college, and while you're going to college, you can get you a little job, save your money, buy some stuff, you know, get a car, get a house. You can pretty much do that with no man. Every woman in the house say amen. Amen. All right. There's shit in the United. Now some of y'all get too hallelujah. That's what I came from. Now don't go home telling your husband that. Get my point. I'm saying there is a difference between the 21st century woman in America who even loses her husband or loses her child, and she's the only one in a house, and a widow here. In this first century, a Jewish woman who was a widow was in the lowest social class, connected with orphans and connected with the poor, because a woman couldn't just go get a job, go to college, and I'm just going to do it without it, because in that culture, if a woman didn't have a man, she had no support system whatsoever. So when the husband, first of all, there's the daddy. Then after daddy gone, if I got a husband, my husband will take care of me. If I got some brothers, they may take care of me. But I got a husband who's gonna take care of me. But if the husband is gone, then it becomes the responsibility of the sons. To take care of their mother. And what happens here is the sons become basically the social security. Do you hear what I'm saying? So back then, so you got to enter into this widow. It ain't just, I lost my son. No. It's more than just an emotional loss. But when she loses the son, she basically loses everything she had. Now, the text said the widow not only lost her son, but the text said she lost her, you finish it for me, her only son. I see you read the text too. So, imagine if I got 2 or 3 boys, one died, emotionally and relationally I'm hurt because no one can take the place. And please don't ever say to some woman who has a miscarriage, or a woman or a mother who loses a child, please don't say in the name of comfort, well, at least she got 2 more. Don't do that, because I said don't. Look, somebody said don't do that. Because there ain't no comfort, because whoever that child was, the rest of the children, yes, that's true, they got other children, maybe, but no one can take the place of that particular child. I wish I had somebody here. All right, but from a social economic standpoint, social security, if I have another son, or I got 2 more boys, yeah, this one gone, but still, I got some support as I get older, just like I cared for them when they couldn't care for themselves, they can care for me. Now that I'm getting older, a woman who lost her son, a widow who lost her son, check that, a widow who lost her only son. So she is at the lowest point, because as she goes, the funeral is here, and they're on their way to the grave. They're on their way to bury this boy. Please enter into her pain as she goes. It's not just emotional loss. Yes. It's not just relational loss, but it's also social and economic loss. Can you imagine the woman as she's on her way to bury her? Because as she is burying her son, she's also saying goodbye to her life. Because after she leaves the gravesite, she got to go home. And the text says that there's a crowd there. But y'all know that don't mean, how many of y'all know that just because folks show up at the funeral anticipation of what they're going to do after. Oh, when it comes to the funeral, they'll call you. They'll send plants and flowers. And thank God for that. They'll give you a call. But later on down the road, the phone calls will get few. The plants will wither and die. And you'll be left there. So the woman is having to wonder, how am I going to make it? How am I going to support? So the text is actually giving more attention to this woman here. And the text is going to show that Jesus not only cares about those who die, but Jesus also cares about those who are left to live in the absence of that purpose. Did you hear what I said? Now let me do that one more time. I need you to hear that. Jesus don't just care about the microphone that went out. Jesus don't just care about, the person who dies, but Jesus cares about the one who's left behind to grieve. Can I come to your seat for just a minute and let you know that Jesus doesn't just care about the person who you got to say goodbye to, and he doesn't just care about the issue about death, but also he got some compassion for you who got to stay and live in light of the act. Matter of fact, if the person that died knows Jesus, the one who's hurting is you. It ain't them, because they in a better place. And while you in the cat come out, come back, they said, no, before I come back to you, you need to come where I am. I wish I had a witness in here. But you are left to grieve. So this text emphasized that Jesus is not just concerned with the dead, but he's also concerned with the living who are left to cry in the place of the absence. How do I know that? I read it for you, but notice where Jesus comes and verse 12, as he drew near to the gate of the town, behold, a man who had died was being carried out, the only son of his mother. By the way, let me just go ahead and tip my hand. This is not the text. This is not the only time that the only child is going to come up in Luke. Jairus is going to have a daughter that's the only child. That's going to be a crazy boy who was demonic. If he was living in our time, we call him the crazy baby demon. And he's jumping up in the fire. And Jesus said, he come to Jesus, I need you to heal my son. But not only is he my son, he's my only son. I'm just kind of tipping my hat to let you know that there's a string of only child. I'm really going somewhere with that. I just want to throw that out, stick a pin, and I'll come back to it. But here is the only son of the mother, and she was a widow, and a considerable crowd from town was with her. Now look at verse 13. Notice how the emphasis is on her. All right. And when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her. And he said to her, do not weep. The text could have gone another way, where Jesus looked at the dead body and he saw him and he got emotionally disturbed because of death. But the text doesn't say that Jesus' direction and emphasis is on the dead boy. The text said that it was, did you see the text right 13? The Lord saw her, the woman who is left to live in this grieving state. The Lord had compassion, not the issue of him, but on her who got to live in this social situation without any social support. I wish I had somebody. I wish I had a mic. Get some work done. Tristan. You gonna stay on? For real? Y'all ain't tripping me, is you? Close parentheses. He saw her. He had compassion on her. And he spoke to her because the emphasis is on this woman. Not merely the boy who died, but those who are left to lead, to grieve in the absence. This text said that he stops to care. But what I want you to see is that Jesus works in time. Everybody say in time. Now, it's not just that Jesus comes, here's a person who died, he lifts them up. If all you're doing is just looking at somebody dead and rose, you're missing the point. It's not just what Jesus does, but you need to pay attention to how Jesus does and how the story goes. What happens is that the text said that there's two crowds going on here. I said, everybody say two crowds. All right, now, I want you to read. Let's go back to verse 11. And soon after, he went to a town called Nain. So Jesus going to Nain. And notice it ain't on his radar. The text don't say Jesus going to Nain to heal somebody. It just said he going to Nain. Y'all see that? and his disciples and a great crowd was with him. So Jesus got his posse. And they going to name, he's going in, and as he drew near to the gate, the word is he's going in. Notice what happened. Behold, the man who had died being carried out. So look at me, as Jesus is going in with his crowd, there's a woman who's coming out with her crowd. Now, what's going to happen is there's going to be a collision of compassion. You got two crowds here, y'all. You got two crowds. You got one crowd going out, and you got another crowd going in. Jesus with his group is going in. They're going out, and what's going to happen is they're about to bump into each other. Can I just stop here and give you a word? Can I give you a word? It's called divine synchronicity. Can I do it just one more time? Just kind of walk before I explain it. Can I give you a word? The word today is divine synchronicity. And what that means is God works not only in time, but he comes at the right place, at the right time to give you exactly what you need. He got a way of syncing your crisis with his compassion. And anybody know, we call it like this, he's an on-time God. Yes, that's all that is, a synchronicity. You remember Daniel in the lion's den, and God met him at that's synchronicity. God meets her. Two crowds coming. Two crowds, and he's about to meet Jesus. Let me help you appreciate that. You have here a weeping widow who's about to connect with the compassionate Christ. You have a mother's only son who's about to connect with a father's only son. You have a procession of death about to connect with the power of life. You have a crowd of mourners who are about to connect with a Christ of miracles. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? Yeah, you have a crowd that is prepared to bury, about to connect with a Christ who's prepared to bless. You have a woman who has lost everything, who's about to come in contact with a Christ who got everything that she needs. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? You have human grief that's about to connect with divine grace. All I'm trying to tell you is that God has a way of meeting you at the right place, at the right time. And when your crisis intersects with his compassion, he will intervene and do the impossible. I'll give you time to just shout, say amen, or nod your head, or write, do something. Everybody say synchronicity. Yeah, he meets you. He knows how to meet you at the right place, at the right time to give you exactly what you. Now, it may not be exactly like this, but God knows how to meet you. Oh, maybe I'm assuming too much. Is there anybody in the house that can look back over your life and see that you were in the middle of a crisis, that you didn't have what you were going to do, and God met you at the right time, at the right place, and gave you everything that you need? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. He meets them. God works in time. Everybody say in time. I had this, and sometimes the way God works now is there's somebody else in a crisis, and there's somebody else who needs mercy, and somebody at the end of their road. And the way that God will minister his presence to them, listen to this, is he'll send you at the right time, at the right place. Have you ever been there where you were just minding your own business? You was on your way to Maine. And God had another plan. It happened to me yesterday. Can I just go on and testify? It happened to me yesterday. I'm sitting up trying to find a place. I needed to go to a library to pick up some stuff. Y'all know I'm doing the school thing, so I need the resources. So I'm going to a school. I ain't gonna name the school, but I was going down there to get into the library. And when I came out, I sat there, had a little chicken sandwich from McDonald's, so I didn't go inside immediately. So I ate my little chicken sandwich, had a little book in the back, started reading, making notes and all that, stood for a while, sat there. Then I finally decided to get out. When I got out, just as I'm going out, there's a man coming down this little road in a wheelchair. I ain't paying too much attention. I'm on my way with my books and I got some studying to do. I got to preach a sermon tomorrow. I'm on my way to the library. The man hollered, he said, "Hey, sir." Wait, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, are you a minister?" I'm like, now y'all, I'm dressed down all the way like, "Dude, can you give me 10 cents? I'm looking like that. Ain't no tie, ain't no three-piece, so I ain't got none of that on. Got some Adidas on, how you know? And I was like, oh shit, well maybe, and I got my mask on, how you know me? "Are you a minister?" I said, "Yes, sir, I'm a minister," because you never know what you're going to get done. And he said, "Look, my wife down here, Baylor, she just had a stroke. And she ain't doing too good. Matter of fact, I ain't doing too good. Sir, can you just pray for me?" Before I even got his name, "Father, in the name of Jesus, we ask you to touch her right now." And I began to pray with the man and whatnot. After that, he said, "What's your name?" We talked a little bit, and he said, "Thank you." He didn't ask for no money. He didn't ask for no chicken. He didn't ask for nothing. All he wanted was some prayer. And then I went up, y'all, the next door over. I went up to knock on the door to go into the library. The door locked. Police come downstairs, looked at me. "Yeah, can I help you?" Like I want chicken. I said, "Yeah, I need to get into the library." He said, "Well, are you a student?" I said, "No, I'm not a student here. I just, what you..." So I got mad. Then I started naming off my credentials. I'm a doctoral student at Southern Baptist, alumni of Dallas Theological Seminary. I'm the pastor of St. John Missionary Baptist Church, a church that integrates faith with living. Now I'm looking at my phone. Who I need to call here? We got a Johnny Cochran situation up in this job. We ain't gonna let all the brother want to do is read a book. Y'all been keeping us out of the library long enough. I'm getting the attitude. And I read off all who I was and everything, and I'm getting mad. He kind of saw I was going there. "Hey, my name is such and such. How are you doing? Because you're welcome if you can't come out." I was like, "No, don't play now. Don't do that." He got on the phone. He called whoever. He said, "What's your name again?" "My name's Sean." "Sean out here, he want to come in." Hung the phone up. "Sorry, sir. You can't come into this thing." And I got mad. I went to the car. I said, "Okay, fine." I done ran off all my stuff and all that. And then God hit me. And he said, "Son, I didn't take you down there so you can go to the library. I brought you down there and let you stay in there and eat your biscuit sandwich. Just in time so you can meet with that man who got a wife named Joyce who had a stroke. And all I brought you, I ain't brought you down here for no books. I brought you down here to minister. And the man who needed to recognize me recognized me. And the police did all things out everybody I was. And he just said, 'Send you away.' Because God said, although you had plans, I sent you the name because there was some divine synchronicity." I'm just saying. I had to call my wife and tell her. She was laughing at me. Because in my spirit I wanted to get mad, but I couldn't do nothing but I just saw God get involved. And just help me with my sermon without reading one commentary. The God who works, everybody say in time. But not only do I see the God who works in time, the text got the God who works overtime. That is when the clock has run out. And you saying if God was going to do something, he would have done it by now. Don't count him out. Because sometimes when you go in the towel, God just getting started. Look at the text. Don't have to take my word for it. Look around verse 14. And he told the woman, "Don't weep." And then he came up and touched the bier. And the bearers stood still. And he said, "Young man, I say to you, rise." And the dead man sat up and began to speak. And Jesus gave him back to his, notice that the mother's still the point here. Gave him back to his mother. You can go home now, here your social security, here your support system. I take care, I wish I had somebody. But I said the God who works overtime, notice that the text is saying that they're on their way to the burial. It's all over now. The clock has run out. And there's nothing left to do. They're on their way to the burial. And please understand, by this time, there ain't nothing nobody can do. They go through a lengthy process, although they bury the same day. They go through a lengthy process. The first thing they do when somebody dies is they do the confirmation. We make sure before we bury you, make sure you ain't breathing. I told my wife, go on, whatever money you can get from it, and whatever you want to pull off of me and take me off the machine and all that, do everything you do. I ask just one question. Just make sure I'm dead. So first they had the confirmation. We're going to make sure you're dead. But then not only do in the process of burial, you do the confirmation, then you will go through the crying and the closure, where you would let out a cry, you would tear your clothes to let the public know that this now is a house of grief, and you would close the eyes of the dead, as if to say, clock to run out, it's over. Then what you would do is you would take the person, the corpse, and you would put them on a plank. They didn't have coffin like we got coffins. How many of y'all seen The Color Purple? Y'all remember the lady that died? She was in Africa, and they had her up, and they would lift her and take her to the burial. It's kind of like that. They put you on a plank, and they carry you, but they would cover you up. So we've done the confirmation. We know you're dead. We can close your eyes. We cried, and now we put you and wrapped you up, covered you up. So this is closure. The clock, if God was going to do something, he would have done it by now. But the clock done ran out. And now we on our way to the burial ground. Can you see them? On their way to the burial ground. And it's at this time, when they're on their way, when closure has taken place, that Jesus stops in the middle of when the clock run out. And what Jesus said is, stop everything. Can you imagine the pallbearers there looking at him like, what's this? The text said they stopped. Jesus goes to the casket there, or to the coffin, or to the plank, and he touches top of it, and he speaks. Young man, rise. And the man who was dead now comes alive. Can I tell you what Jesus just did? Can I tell you what Jesus just did? What Jesus did is he let the clock run out, and then he pushed overtime. Can I tell you what Jesus did? He let this woman get to the end of her rope, and there was no other help, where if anything was going to be done, it was done, and he waited until that point where death was sure enough set in, and that's when he decided to work. And the clock went out, Jesus pressed overtime. And I'm just trying to tell you here that don't count Jesus out, because come out there, well, if God was going to do something about it, he would have done something about it now. God was going to work in my situation, he would have done it by now. Jesus said, no, I need you to appreciate what I'm doing. Now, listen, you really can't appreciate this unless you see the story that just came before. Now, the story that just came before, notice what Jesus did. Jesus heals the man, he heals the servant before he dies. So I know he could do it. Jesus could have stopped it. Look at somebody say, Jesus could have stopped it. So what Jesus did before, he said, look, when he's at the point of death, and before the servant died, Jesus didn't even go to the house. He didn't touch nothing. He just what? Spoke the word. And the man was healed. So that lets me know that Jesus could have stopped all this. It couldn't even be no funeral. Jesus could have stopped it before it got to this point. But Jesus said, can take you through your issue. And I need you to know that I'm a God that can take you to the end when you lost everything and show you that I'm the God of restoration. By the way, you'll never know him as the God of restoration if you don't lose something. So you try to keep everything you got, do the best you can. Pray to God, let you keep it. Pray to God, don't let you lose it. But understand, if you're going to see that side of God and you're going to shout about him restoring, if you're going to shout about him being the God of restoration, don't mean nothing if you ain't lost nothing. So some of us just want to see him as the God who stops it and God blocked it. Yeah, he can block it. But that ain't the only thing he can do. He can let it come and let it hit you and let you go down to the lowest point. And sometimes it's when you go to the lowest point that you see the greatness of his power. I said it's when you get to the lowest point that some stuff God needs an environment and an atmosphere to show you the kind of God that he is. So this woman lost everything, but in the midst of it he said, no, Now, I want you to appreciate something else. The text said that he touched the coffin. Everybody said touch. Now, somebody touched Jesus. Jesus touched. Understand what's going on here. Now, according to the law, when Jesus touched this thing, it was supposed to defile him. According to Numbers chapter 19, anytime you can't touch a dead person, you ain't supposed to touch anything connected to the dead. And anytime you touch something that's connected to the dead, you are defiled. But can I tell you what happened here? Jesus said that death don't affect me, I affect it. Ooh! It's just like the leper. When he touched the leper didn't make him unclean, he made him clean. When the woman touched him with the issue of blood, she should have made him clean, but she didn't make him clean, he made her whole. And when he touched the dead, the dead didn't defile him, he brought the dead to life. Can I tell you that the problem don't affect him, he affects the problem? Can I do that one more time? I said the problem don't affect him, he affects the problem. That's why you cannot define your God based on what you're going through. You do know we do that. We define God based on our size up. I evaluate God based on what I'm going. It kind of go like this. Well, if he was a good God, if he really cared about me, he wouldn't let me go through this. Or atheists. If God, one of the best arguments is, if God really existed, why is there this and why is there this? And they go through a litany of the problems in the world to say that the problems define God. But can I tell you that God can't be defined by your problem, but you need to define your problem in light of your God, because your problem doesn't sit in judgment over God, but God sits in judgment over your problem. Have you in the rivers that seem incrossable? Have you in the mountains that you cannot come through? I heard a song say, God specializes in things impossible, and he will do what no other power can do. So sometimes he takes you to that very place, the thing that you fear the most. In this text, he addresses the thing that all of us fear the most, and it's death. And he said, now, I don't just need you to know that I can postpone death. I need you to know that I can cancel the funeral. That is, after death has taken place, I need you to know that the thing you fear the most, I ain't going to sit up here and let you think that whatever you fear the most is greater than me. Did you follow that? I'm not going to let you sit up here and think that the thing you fear the most is greater than me. Let's have a little Oprah moment right now. What is the thing you fear the most? I want you to think about it. What is that thing that you fear the most? What is that thing you feel losing the most? We really have an Oprah moment here. Are you thinking about it? Yeah. What's that thing? Maybe something with your life, maybe a health issue. It may be a relational issue. It may be somebody else, not what happened to you, but you're scared about what happened to somebody else. It may be a child or a grandchild that you got on your heart and you've been praying, just Lord, don't let it happen, don't let it happen, don't let it happen. Now the text before last week lets you know that God got no power to speak and keep it from happening and postpone it. God got that power. But you also got to trust him to say, hey, whatever that is in your mind that you feel the most, I can take you to it and take you through that. And whatever it is that you feel losing, I can take it out your life. But you can trust me with it, because whatever you lose with me, I got the power to come in and restore. I don't need you to just know me as a God who can keep it away. I need you to know that I'm a God who can take you through it and restore you. I wish I had somebody here. He's the God who works overtime. Are y'all hearing me this morning? It was Theodore Roosevelt in 1884. He goes home. He's just an assemblyman now in New York. He gets a telegram that his wife is sick and his mother is sick. And on February the 14th, 1884, Theodore Roosevelt goes home. Somebody meets him at the door and says, death is in this house. And in that day, that same day, he lost his mother and he lost his wife that was giving birth to their child. All right. On Valentine's Day, Theodore Roosevelt lost his mother and he lost his wife. And he wrote in his diary, the light of my life has gone out. That was in 1884. He thought because the clock had run out and everything, it was all over for him, and when they went in the ground, so did his life going around. I ain't got no reason to live. Matter of fact, he was so emotionally touched by it that after that you could not even mention his wife's name in his presence. That's how much it attacked him, because when she went to the ground, his life went to the ground. He didn't know that God still had plans for him, because that was in 1884. He was an assemblyman. He had no idea that by 1901 he would become the 26th president of the United States. And after he said, my light has gone out, the clock has gone out, God said, no, but I work overtime. And somebody here, you look back and you ask God to keep something from coming, and it happened. And now it's kind of shaking your faith to the point where you're looking at God like, if you really cared about me, if you really loved me, you wouldn't have let this happen. He said, wait a minute now. No, I know the clock went out, but understand, I'm the God of overtime, and I got the power to restore you back. I wish I had a witness here. And give you double for your trouble. He will do it. Look at somebody say, he will do it. Don't define your problem. Don't define your God in light of your problem. Define your problem in light of your God. I got one more thing to say and I'm through. Not only does he work. Am I helping somebody? Not only does he work in time. Not only does he work overtime. But he also works ahead of time. And you're right. Somebody said, and they work overtime. I just want to get into this piece here. Look at verse 16. After he raised the boy up, returned to his mother, now we go into, he's a God ahead of time. Fear seized them all, and they glorified God, saying, a great prophet. The responsibility of a prophet is to foretell, to tell what future, what's going to happen in the future, to work ahead of time. Great prophet has come to everybody say prophet. But then it takes them a while to get there, and you got to appreciate their faith where it is. It ain't all where it need to be, but you can appreciate it. A great prophet. Matter of fact, I kind of like reading, and I started laughing when I began to imagine the situation when the text said that as soon as the boy got up, fear seized them. Now it's easy for us in a church, 21st century, to kind of just read, and fear seized them, and they praise God. Hallelujah. God can bring it back in your life. But I want you to go to the scene. Now let's bring it here. Okay, we went, the coroner come, person's dead. They do the embalming, what all they gonna do? We been to the funeral home, we done made the arrangements. Come up in the church, I preach my I fly away sermon. We walk out, And we're on our way down the street. Mosier Valley's dead end. There's a graveyard down there. We get down to the graveyard. And then all of a sudden a prophet come, touch the coffin. And then not only does the coffin pop up, but the person that we just did the funeral for, get up, talking about how y'all doing. Now I don't know about you, but what I know about us, I'm just gonna talk about my family. I don't know about your family. Before I get to the text there, fear seized them. Can you identify with that? That means nobody expected for it to happen. God did what was unexpected. God did what's impossible. I know if I see somebody at a barrier get up and start talking, no, I'm finna, a matter of fact, I know some of y'all be trying to, now what happened in this minute? No, I'm down on Chruch. I'll call y'all later. Y'all all right? But I used to stay around and analyze. Remember what you think was still up now? No, back. Fear seized them. Allow yourself to enter into that. The unexpected phenomena of the dead being raised. Can you agree with me that it don't happen every day? It's what it takes to let you know that you ain't just got somebody here and they understood it when they got the wits about themselves. They begin to glorify God and they say, wow, we ain't never seen, anytime a dead person comes to life, a great prophet has come. Matter of fact, he used the word risen. A great prophet has risen. Oh my God. Now when he say that, understand that they were accurate, but they were not adequate. That is, they were right as far as they went. He is a great prophet. But it wasn't adequate, it wasn't enough, because he ain't just a prophet. He's the prophet. The text opened up calling him the Lord. Now, the reason why they understand him to be a prophet and one who can work ahead of time is because they've seen something like this before. Because back in the Old Testament in Kings, Elijah did the same thing. That's why they come up with the prophet thing. Are y'all in Bible country with me? And you got a lot of parallels. You got a lot of similarities between Elijah and Jesus. Everybody say Elijah. Say Jesus. Say Elijah. Say Jesus. Elijah was a prophet. Jesus is a prophet. Elijah came in contact with a widow. Jesus comes in contact with a widow. The widow that Elijah comes in contact with has a son. The widow that Jesus comes in contact with has a son. The son in Elijah's story died. The son in Jesus' story died. In Elijah's story, Elijah raised up the boy. In Jesus' story, Jesus raised up the boy. But all sin to be forgiven. I hear Jesus saying, Father, forgive them. For they know not. He ain't just a prophet, but he is the prophet. Which means that he can not only speak into my right now, and he can not only speak to my has been, but he is speaking to my shall be. And like the rest of the prophets, they will speak in the future. But Jesus said, I ain't only going to tell you what's going to happen, but I'm going to make it happen. He like made room that he pointed back to where he's going to hit the ball. I wish I had somebody in here to let you know that he is the one who speaks ahead. And for all of you who are worrying about the hypotheticals of life, what if this don't work out? What if I go home and this don't happen? What if this relationship don't work out? What if this job won't work out? What if I lose this? What if I lose that? Jesus said, wait a minute, I'm the prophet that's gone ahead of you to prepare a table. So when you get there, you will realize I'm already there. And I made the arrangements because he's not only the God of my right now, he's the God of my shall be. I wish I had a witness. When I tell you that he's the God who works ahead of time. Matter of fact, because he is the prophet who fulfills all things. Can I tell you what this text is letting you know? He's letting you know, Sean, I ain't just started working with this little dead boy. But I've been working ahead of time all the way back before time. Matter of fact, when you look at the Old Testament, it shows you that I've been working all the way up to this point. Did you read about me in Genesis? Where I was the beginning? Did you read in Exodus that I'm the Redeemer? Did you read in Leviticus that I'm the atoning sacrifice? Did you read in Numbers that I'm the serpent lifted up? In the wilderness, did you read in Deuteronomy that I'm the prophet that is to come? Did you read in Joshua that I'm the captain of your salvation? Did you read in Judges that I'm the strong deliverer? Did you read in Ruth that I am the kinsman redeemer who looks out for my relatives? Did you read in 1st and 2nd Samuel that I'm the David's son? Did you read in 1 Kings that I'm the glory that fills the temple? Did you read in 2 Kings that I'm the king that brings back the captives? Do I have a witness in here? Yeah, in 1st and 2nd Chronicles, I'm the temple cleanser. In Ezra, I'm the temple builder. In Nehemiah, I'm the wall builder. Did you hear about me? In Esther, that I'm the providential hand that works behind the curtain of history to orchestrate my purposes for my people. Did you read in Job that I'm a horse plowing in the valley? Did you read in Psalms that I'm the great shepherd? I'm the good shepherd. I'm the chief shepherd. Because I told you the Lord is my shepherd. Let somebody say ahead of time. In Proverbs, I was your wisdom. In Ecclesiastes, I was the creator in the day. it your shall be. Those in the church open, we extend two opportunities. First opportunity is if you have not accepted this Christ, who is God's only Son. And by the way, when Jesus gets on the cross, he's the final word. After Jesus, God ain't got nothing else to say to you. God's final word to us is Jesus. And after Jesus, God will not be circling the block. So if you want to get in on what God has to offer, everything he has to offer is in Jesus. And here's the point, what you see in this story. It's not a promise like, okay, come in and believe on Jesus and come to church and pay your money and be faithful. And in return, when you pray and ask God to keep bad things from happening, he will. Now somebody that lied to you, and that's why you're mad at God. That's why you got an attitude, because you didn't pray for stuff, and you asked God to keep stuff from happening, and he didn't. And you have sized him up based on it. And Jesus said, no, I ain't that kind of God, and I ain't never told you I was that kind of God. I did not promise you that I'm always going to do you like the centurion. I will do you like the widow and let you lose some stuff. So you can see that I'm the God of restoration. And I'm not just only sitting in heaven and watching you go through it, but Jesus comes down and endures the worst of loss when he gets on the cross. And he does it for you, dying for your sin. And buried in the grave and rose again and say, for all of you who messed up, all of you who can't get it right, and that's everybody, you trust in me. I've forgiven you your sin. If you believe me, what happens is I'll give you new life and no one can take it away. And you can experience what this man experienced in this text to a short degree. You can experience what it means to have new life. All you got to do is just trust him. And he's a God that's big enough. He's bigger than a Sunday morning. All right. He ain't just the God of the church. He's the God of history. He's the God of creation. Who will work for you in time, and he'll work overtime, and he'll work ahead of time. You can trust him from beginning to end. He got you covered. He's worthy of your trust. He's worthy of your faith. If you haven't trusted him, this is your time. This is your opportunity. Second invitation is this. You've accepted Christ as your Savior, but you do not have a church home, and God has put it upon your heart to be a part of this church family. I don't believe I'm by myself when I say we'll be glad to have you. Amen. This is not by any means a perfect church. But if you find a perfect church, don't you join it. Because the moment you join it, it will cease to be a perfect church because you got baggage just like everybody else. But what I can promise you is that we are a community under divine construction. God is taking some stuff out, and he's putting some stuff in, and when he gets through with us, guess what? We'll look just like him. And if you want to join us on this journey today, we say come. There's nothing